How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Infinite Sports. I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder. It has been a minute, but on today's episode, we are going to cover or recap what happened over the weekend in the NFL. Week 7, another week in the books. I'll be heading to Pittsburgh this weekend for Packers Steelers, so I'm really looking forward to that. So we'll kind of just go through how everything unfolded this past week. Again, it's kind of been a minute since we did a show. Been busy, so that's kind of why you haven't really seen me post anything as of late. But we are back to cover the NFL. And also the NBA starts tonight. So throw that in a couple of games. Rockets and the Thunder, and the Warriors and the Lakers will be facing off. No LeBron James in that game. He'll be out till, I think, mid-November. And for the Thunder, they'll be facing an old friend in Kevin Durant. He'll be making his Rockets debut, so that's exciting. So again, not the best slate. I didn't do very good in the spreads. I did go heavy on the underdogs this week, and I got bit in a lot of these games with how they went. But yeah, no, I mean, when you look at the landscape of the NFL, there's no clear-cut favorite right now, although there's teams that you're seeing right now, they're kind of starting to separate themselves a little bit, and there's teams that, we're used to seeing at the top, they're starting to find their groove, and by that I mean the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs have looked really good these past couple weeks, and this is one of those games where I took the underdog and I didn't feel good about it at all. I took the Raiders with the points, and the Chiefs just, I mean, you could tell from the first couple of possessions of that game that the Chiefs were just going to dominate and the Raiders had no chance. And the Raiders have been very bad, especially offensively. Geno Smith has been turning the ball over constantly. The team is just not, it's not good. It's not good. They got a lot of work to do. And you would have thought with Pete Carroll that this team would show more fight. They're really not showing that. They're really not showing that. Because if you go back to last year, I mean, the Raiders, they were competitive with the Chiefs. Now, you could also say the Chiefs weren't as good last year as they are right now at this current moment. But, the Raiders, they hung in there with the Chiefs last year, especially in Arrowhead. That game was pretty close till the end, and then you had the bobbled snap by Aiden O'Connell. But yeah, the Chiefs 31-0 over the Raiders, and Rashee Rice was back for this game, and he was all over the place making plays. Had a couple of touchdowns in this game as well, 2 receiving touchdowns, and Isaiah Pacheco had a rushing touchdown on the ground. Mahomes, he's got 14 touchdowns and 2 picks. He's looking like Patrick Mahomes. If they could get this running game going, I mean, this offense is going to be unbeatable almost. With Rashee Rice back, Xavier Worthy healthy, you got Hollywood Brown as your third weapon or your third receiver. And of course, you have Travis Kelce. I mean, it's a pretty good offense. They look really good right now. They look really good. The defense is playing well, and obviously they were coming off of that big win over the Lions on Sunday night. So, Chiefs are back. Chiefs are back. We got to be if you're a Chiefs hater, you got to be a little concerned with how this team is playing right now. They are playing with a chip on their shoulder, and we will see them take on the Bills in a couple weeks. So that's a huge game, and that could have major implications. But the Bills aren't even in first place. They're not even in first place. They lost to the Falcons, and then they were on the bye. They lost to the Patriots the week before that, and now you got the Patriots. Look at Drake May. Look at how Drake May is playing. He's rounding into form. The defense is coming around. The running game. Now with Ramondre Stevenson, as long as he doesn't fumble the football, they got a running game there. They still got to wait on Travion Henderson to get it going, but they're trying to get the ball to Stephon Diggs more. Mike Vrabel wins in his return to Nashville to take on his former team in the Titans. They picked up a win. They're 5-2. And this was a team that I said they were going to double their win total this year. I really did believe that. Now, I thought they were still at least a year away from competing, but this is a team that can make the playoffs. This is a team that right now is in the driver's seat to win their division. Now, I don't know if it's going to stay that way because I think the Bills still have something to say about it. But Patriots look good. I mean, Drake May, he's got 12 touchdowns to 2 picks. A lot of quarterbacks are playing well this year, and he's one of them. The Titans actually, after the first quarter, they had a lead. They were up 10-3, but Cam Ward had a terrible fumble that led to a defensive touchdown. I mean, he continues to turn the ball over. He's got 4 touchdowns to 5 picks. Yeah, the Titans, they're on their way to having one of the worst records in the NFL. But they don't have the worst record in the NFL. The team that does have that right now, you can point fingers at the New York Jets, who lose 13-6 to the Carolina Panthers. Panthers got Chuba Hubbard back. The Jets, they ended up benching Justin Fields, who did get banged up in this game, was being evaluated for a concussion, but just more of the same with this Jets offense. I mean, they can't do anything. And it doesn't help when Garrett Wilson is out, your best offensive player. Breece Hall, I know, got banged up in this game as well. But this Jets offense, I mean, you go back to week 1, and Fields, looked good against the Steelers defense, although the Steelers defense, kind of, the week 1 Steelers defense kind of reared its ugly head in the game against the Bengals on Thursday. I mean, Fields was making good throws. The pass to Garrett Wilson for the touchdown. The Jets were running the football. The offense was moving it. They were doing well. But it's just since then, it's taken a nosedive. And they haven't shown any improvement. The defense kept them in the game once again. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. And now, it looks like Tyrod Taylor is going to end up being the starter going forward. Aaron Glenn hasn't named a starting quarterback yet. He's undecided, but you would think it's going to be Tyrod Taylor. Because right now, at this current moment, Tyrod Taylor gives the Jets a better chance to win than Justin Fields. And I agree that they're not using Fields right. You got to have Fields run the football a little bit more. But the guy also has to be able to complete passes, do the little things. And he can't do that. And people that are Jet fans, they've been saying, some of them, that I've watched, that maybe it wasn't the best idea to let the first ballot Hall of Famer walk. Now, I think I've said this already since we started doing these shows. I understood the reasoning behind moving on. I understood the decision. But at the same time, if the Jets had Aaron Rodgers right now, the Jets would not have a winning record. They would not have a winning record. I don't believe that. Because I think when you have this rookie head coach in Aaron Glenn, and especially how he handled some of the clock management, some of the things that he did in the Broncos game, I just think this team still wouldn't be good. Even if they had Aaron Rodgers, even if they had Devontae Adams, I think they have a win or two, but I still don't think this team would have a good record. Their window was 2023. And unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles. That was their chance because the defense was very good. And I think, if Rodgers stays healthy, maybe they are a playoff team. I mean, right? They were 7-4 at one point with Zach Wilson. So, or 6-4, whatever the record was. I think that was their chance. So, and then last year happens, and then, Greg Zuerlein, who had a good year in 2023, he fell off last year. The defense wasn't the same. And yeah, Rodgers could have played better, absolutely. But you let go of Robert Saleh, you give the reins to Jeff Dolbrick, and he was in over his head. And you look at what's going on with Aaron Glenn, it seems like he's in over his head right now. And you got Jet fans questioning, should this regime be the ones to draft the franchise quarterback? Because the Jets are going to be picking in the top 5, the top 3. They could have right now. They're in position for the top pick. So we'll have to wait and see. And then you also got to look at, like I mentioned, Jeff Ulbricht. I mentioned Robert Saleh. You see what Jeff Ulbricht did to Josh Allen last Monday night. You see what Robert Saleh is doing. The 49ers are missing their top two defensive players. And you could argue they're the two best players on the team. You know, you're missing those guys, yet the defense, they held that Falcons offense down on Sunday night. Like there's just something that needs to be fixed. This Jets franchise needs like a complete overhaul. And it's not getting any better. And I saw the clip on TikTok of a young Jet fan getting interviewed, and he said, he's a Jet fan, he's gonna stick with them, but literally saying, you got fans literally saying that they hate their team, they hate the Jets. They're at rock bottom. Like at least with the Giants, they've had a few blips, 2016, 2022, during their rough stretch. And believe me, get to the Giants in a minute, but I mean, it's been years. Last time the Jets made the playoffs, I was in elementary school. When is it going to change? I don't know. I don't know. But the Panthers, how about them? They continue to roll. Bryce Young did get hurt in the game. I think a high ankle sprain he suffered, so he's going to be out for this upcoming game. Andy Dalton's going to be getting the start for him. The Panthers, I believe they are taking on. Oh, they're taking on the Packers in Lambeau, and they are 10-point underdogs in that contest. So actually, wait, no, I'm wrong. Why did I say the Packers? I meant to say the Bills. I was looking at Week 9, and I literally said at the very beginning of the episode I'm going to be in Pittsburgh when the Steelers take on the Packers. So no, they take on the Packers the following week. They're taking on the Bills, who are coming off of a bye this week. So that's this upcoming week. That's who the Panthers will be facing off against. All right, you know what? Let's talk about the Giants, though. So the Jets, they've given you really no signs of improvement as the season is going on. The Giants have, but they kind of they continue to revert back to thinking they're going to take that next step, which you could say they still did despite losing this game. But they also just rip your heart and rip your soul out. Because that's what happened in this game against the Broncos. Now, what I will say about the Broncos is, to kind of pivot to the Broncos for a second, at halftime, they honored the team, the Super Bowl 50 team, and they also inducted Demaryius Thomas into their Ring of Honor. And Demaryius Thomas, of course, passed away, I think, a couple years ago. Tough on all the players, obviously. Saw an interview of Peyton Manning getting choked up, his mom also being interviewed. It's tough to see that, but the Broncos did a nice thing, and Emmanuel Sanders made a nice speech, talking about him and as he addressed the crowd. But so it was an emotional day for the Broncos. I mean, it's amazing how that was 10 years ago, that team, and it's not like the Broncos had a high-powered offense in 2015. That was the year that offense was not very good. Peyton Manning was not very good, but they got carried by that defense. And some of those players are still playing right now. I mean, really, I think it's really just Von Miller. Right? I don't know who else from that defense is still playing. I don't really think anybody else from that defense is still playing. I think it's just Von Miller. Right? DeMarcus Ware, Malik Jackson, Aqib Talib. I mean, all those guys. Chris Harris. All those guys were there. Von Miller's, I think, the only one that's still. I'd have to double check, but he's obviously with the. Still playing, and I think he's with the Commanders. So obviously he couldn't make it. But yeah, it's amazing how, I mean, I always say it, how fast time flies. But so it was a very emotional day for the Broncos and their fans. Um, so I did want to bring that up, obviously, because I know, putting Demarius Thomas in the Ring of Honor, that was special. You just wish that he was there to witness that, but a good, very good ceremony nonetheless, and to honor that team that brought a championship to Denver again. And that was the last team that made the playoffs until the team that made it last year against the Bills. So, but there was some magic, to say the least, in that game because, and I'll be honest, I was out. My family and I, we went out to meet up with cousins and for for food. We went to a German restaurant, so I wasn't really watching. I mean, I was keeping up with the game, obviously, but I wasn't. I didn't watch the first three quarters. But Giant defense is playing well, getting stops. Cam Scattaboo, another touchdown for him. Jackson Dart looking good, finding Daniel Bellinger for a long touchdown. Jackson Dart and he's doing it against a very good Broncos defense. And it looked like the Giants were going to be on their way to a win. So the Broncos didn't score their first points until the fourth quarter, and it was off a deflection. They went for two, they got it. So, then you're like, okay, the Giants are still in control. It's still a two-score game. And then the Giants had a deflection for a touchdown. Dart tries to hit, I think, Wan'Dale Robinson, and it ends up deflecting off of him. And Theo Johnson catches it off the rebound. He ends up scoring. And then all of a sudden, the Giants, they're up 26-8. And you're thinking, they're going to win this game. Giants defense was holding it down. They looked like they were going to win two in a row, get to 3-4, and then all of a sudden you're thinking, can this team make a run at the playoffs? Another team, another good team that the Giants beat? Should have known better. Should have known better because after that happened, it all went downhill. Broncos end up scoring a touchdown. They get the 2-point conversion on that. So it's 26-16. And Tiki Barber, listening to him all over the Giants for the play calling. There's 5 minutes left in the game. Giants are running the ball. They're getting the Broncos to burn their timeouts. You got to continue to do that. Because on this possession, you run it, they waste their timeout, you punt it off to them, then they got to go the length of the field again. But the Giants don't do that. What they do is they put the ball in their quarterback's hands, and you know what? Jackson Dart has made a lot of plays since taking over. But at the same time, got to understand that he's a rookie quarterback. And he's prone to make rookie mistakes. And that is exactly what happened on this play. Broncos disguised blitz. Linebacker drops back in coverage. Dart thinks he has an open man in Theo Johnson. He ends up getting intercepted. And what did the Broncos do? Score another touchdown. They score another touchdown. And then the Giants end up giving the football back to the Broncos again. And on a designed run, and Bo Nix ends up taking the ball, scrambling down the sideline, ends up scoring a touchdown. And the Broncos are up 30-26. Now, the Giants converted on a 4th and long on the possession to follow that. I don't know how this was a first down. I thought Wan'Dale Robinson was short, but Dart somehow connects with Wan'Dale. He makes a good catch. And I guess the ball crossed the plane, crossed the first down marker, so it ended up being a first down, and that extended the drive. Giants got a couple of penalties to get them, to set up the touchdown run by Dart. But the worst thing that could have happened was Dart scored too early. And it's ridiculous to say that because there's under a minute left and the Broncos have no timeouts. So it shouldn't be he scored too early. The defense should be able to get to make a stop. But they had to review it if Dart got in. And they reviewed it, and he got in. So the Giants took a 2-point lead. And all you got to do now is make the extra point. Because the Broncos, they're only really going to have time to try to get into field goal range. Which they did. And they ended up winning the game. But what ends up happening? The Giants' inability to figure out their kicking situation. Can't make an extra point. And that was the second missed extra point of the game. Graham Gano injured. And because they have this guy, Jude McAdamy? McAdamy? I don't even know how to be honest, I really don't even know how to pronounce his name. 2 for 4 on extra points. He misses he missed the second extra point in a crucial moment. So you knew right then and there, Broncos are going to go down the field and score and kick the game-winning field goal. And that's what happened. The Giants, once again, this soft coverage. They only rushed 3. Dexter Lawrence wasn't even on the field at one point. And Bo Nix, I mean, he gets all of the yards, pretty much. He hits Marvin Mims for 29 yards. And it wasn't even supposed to go to Mims. It was supposed to go to Sutton, but Mims happened to be in the same area. So he makes the catch. Then Brian Burns gets a neutral zone infraction, so that's another 5 yards. Then he connects with Sutton over Deontay Banks, who had to come in because the Giants had Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland got banged up in this game. Will Lutz kicks a 39-yard field goal. They win the game 33-32. The Broncos scored all 33 of their points in the fourth quarter. Look, I do think that they are heading in the right direction, the Giants. I do, despite this loss. But it's easier for someone that isn't a Giant fan to say that because they haven't experienced what Giant fans have experienced over the last, I mean, depending on what kind of fan you are, for the last almost 10 years. Or pretty much 10 years. Really since the Super Bowl. Which, you know, people bring that up. Well, at least you saw a couple Super Bowls. Yeah, and then you've seen some of the worst football in your entire life. These are the kind of games that prevent me from putting 10 toes down with this team again. Because, yeah, they come off of this emotional win against the Eagles. They beat up the Eagles. Giant fans are in celebration because it's like, when's the last time this has happened? Does this mean they're back? They've been a punching bag for so long. And then all of a sudden you're taking on Denver. I didn't think they were going to win this game. But when they're up 26-8, yeah, part of me is like, yeah, it looks like they're going to win this game. But you should have known better. Because it's the Giants. This is what they do. They find new ways to lose. Now, I think a lot of it has to do with coaching. Shane Bowen, I don't think he's the answer as a defensive coordinator. I really don't. I think coaching has costed the Giants at least 2 wins. This game and the Cowboys game. The Giants should have 2 more wins if they were more aggressive in the final minutes defensively. Now, I get it. You could say the defense was tired. But how are you only rushing 3? Be aggressive. Attack the quarterback. That's why you were up so much. You were making life tough on the Broncos offense. But I think also you could say injuries played a factor. Adebo being out and Javon Holland. Okay. But the soft zone stuff does not work. You should have learned from the Cowboys game. Now, the Broncos didn't have to kick a 64-yard or 67-yard field goal to tie the game. And I thought that was the worst loss that I've ever seen watching the Giants. It was this one. And I didn't even watch the whole game. Honestly, should have stayed at that German restaurant. Probably would have won. Yeah, so I think a lot of it does have to do with coaching. You know, because we talk about the defense, but also start throwing that pick. Run the football. Force the Broncos to use their last timeout. Because then they got to go to the length of the field, and they don't have any timeouts. They can't stop the clock unless they spike it or they go out of bounds. So, yeah, the Giants are 2-5 now. But I will say, they got the quarterback. And I want to be clear, everybody. I didn't want Jackson Dart to start this year because I wanted him. I didn't want him to be forced in so early. I wanted the Giants to be I wanted the Giants to be patient. Let the veteran quarterback start. Maybe the Giants are competitive with him, and then you go to him the following year with the whole year observing, watching, learning under your belt, and then you hand him off, hand the keys to him next year. Not because I don't believe in Jackson Dart. Look, I didn't really watch a lot of Ole Miss. I didn't really know what to expect. He did look good in the preseason, but I got to tell you, this guy was ready from day one. Yeah, this guy was ready from day one. He should have started. He should have been starting the whole year. He should have been starting the whole year. Absolutely. Absolutely. But because I was like, well, Russell Wilson, I know he was bad towards the end of last year with the Steelers, but, he had his good moments last year. Veteran guy. I think he'd come in and do okay. No. No. I couldn't have been more wrong about that whole situation. Jackson Dart should have been starting from day one. And maybe if he started day one, the Giants would have a couple more wins. Now, they did lose to the Saints with Jackson Dart, and that's going to happen because, again, he's a rookie. And the Giants, that was kind of an aberration. 5 turnovers on 5 straight possessions. But that's a win they should have had. I think because the Chiefs still weren't looking great in week 3. I think you could have maybe did something there. And even week 1 against Washington, they were in that game. It's just the offense could not move the ball, and then when they got down in the red zone, they couldn't score. But yeah, he looks like the real deal. Him and Scadaboo, this was a very good draft class by Joe Shane, but got to win games. You got to win games. The kicking situation, I don't know why they can't figure this out. I don't get it. Graham Gano should not have been on this team to start this year. Sorry. He tormented the Giants in the past, and at one point, you could have made the argument he was their best player, but, the guy's always hurt now. And what's the point of bringing in another kicker in Younghoe Koo if you're not even going to activate him? It just doesn't make sense. Doesn't make any sense. And that hurt them last year in spots against the Commanders last year. And just seeing Jackson Dart after Will Lutz hits the game-winning field goal, you feel for the kid. Like, welcome to the Giants. Because these losses have been happening for years now. That's another one it's another one that falls into the category of they should have won this game. They should have won. Well, they don't. They're not well coached. They are not well coached. And until that changes, you're going to continue to have games like that. So, yeah, the Giants end up blowing a huge lead. Well, shocker. I know someone brought up the Miracle at the Meadowlands from, way back. I remember when they were up big against the Eagles, vaguely. It's a long time ago, 2010. And I remember because I was helping my dad with Christmas decorations, and my mom was watching the game. And she was really pissed when Deshaun Jackson ran back that punt return for a touchdown. And the Eagles ended up winning that game. I'm pretty sure my dad came back out and said, yeah, Mom's not happy. It's kind of like that. Giants had a big lead in that game, and they missed the playoffs. They missed the playoffs despite going 10-6. Now, this team's not going 10-6. Now, even if they had a chance to win 10 games, you can't, it's not 10-6 anymore. There's that added regular season game. So, yeah, Broncos win 33-32. You look at the Broncos' wins this year, though. Miracle comeback. They barely squeaked by the Jets. Eagles collapsed. The Bengals aren't very good. And then the Titans. If the Titans were a good team, they maybe lose that game. So, I really have not been that impressed with the Broncos, even though I had them. They're in first place, but Yeah, they haven't looked that great. Haven't looked that great. So yeah, that was a entertaining game for independent football observers, football fan observers. Matthew Stafford and the Rams, no Puka Nakua, didn't matter. Stafford 5 touchdown passes. He has looked really good. 17 touchdowns to 2 picks. Another quarterback that's playing really well. Yeah, the Jags offense just yikes. I mean, no turnovers for Trevor Lawrence, but it's just they couldn't get anything going against the Rams. When they had to go for it, they wouldn't convert. There definitely was points left off the board. Travis Hunter had a good game, so that was good. He broke out, 8 receptions for 101 yards and a touchdown. But yeah, I just feel like this is a team that could make the playoffs, the Jaguars. But I don't think they're in that top. They're not in that top tier. They're like a tier or two below that. I don't think they're ready. I mean, I know they beat the Chiefs on Monday night, but I don't know. I just still there's something missing with this team. There's something missing with this team. I don't think they're a bad team, but I just feel like I just feel like that's a team that I just don't see really doing anything this year. I just don't see it. I don't see it. But I think Liam Cohen has done a very good job. The defense is definitely better. That's something that I had my questions about going into the year, but they take the ball away. The running game has been better. You got Travis Hunter now, opposite Brian Thomas, who's been disappointing, but they have players, and Trevor Lawrence, he's kind of just been like a mixed bag this year. Like, you have that signature win over the Chiefs, but then you lose against Seattle, you lose against the Rams. Like, you take a step forward and then you take 2 steps back. And those are good teams, but you also got to be able to beat the good teams to go far. And I mean, it's not like you're going to meet these teams in the playoffs, these last 2 teams besides the Chiefs, but the signature win, but you got to beat the good teams. And it's just, and who are the teams that they've beaten this year besides the Chiefs? Well, they did beat the 49ers on the road, but that was, the 49ers are banged up. They won with the running game and good defense. And then they beat the Texans and the Panthers. That's who they beat. And they lost to the Bengals. So I don't know. I'll say they're a good team, but they're not a great team. They're not a great team. Rams to me are a great team, even though they choked a couple games, especially the Eagles game. I mean, they should be 7-0 right now. I don't know how they ended up losing to the Eagles. That game they never should have lost. Same thing with the Niners game. Turnovers costed them. But yeah, they got some tough games coming up on the schedule against divisional opponents. They got the Bucks. At one point, they got the Lions. It's always fun when those 2 teams go up against each other. But Stafford's lost the last couple matchups to them. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But Rams are 5-2. Yeah, Cleveland all over the Dolphins. Tua 3 more interceptions on the year. He's got 11 touchdowns to 10 picks. Dylan Gabriel picks up his first win, but the story really was the defense and Quinshon Judkins, 3 rushing touchdowns. Brown's got a good roster. If they could figure out this quarterback position, they are going to be a good team. They're going to be a dangerous team, in fact. Because I like the receiving core. They got some good tight ends. The running game looks like they figured it out with Judkins. You have a very good defense. I mean, they're good. I feel like they're, a couple players away, and obviously major players, a quarterback, and they're going to be a really good team. But we'll see. The Bears, they beat the Saints 26-14. Caleb Williams, not a huge stat line. Bears ran the ball for over 200 yards in this game. That was really the main story. The weather wasn't great over there. But the Bears are 4-2. Look at that. They've now won. They've won 4 straight after starting off the year 0-2. So Ben Johnson's got this team playing well. And now they'll be taking on the Ravens next week. Will Lamar Jackson be playing? We'll see. Also, the Eagles picked up a much-needed victory over the Vikings. Devontae Smith had a huge game. Almost 200 yards receiving. Caught a long touchdown for 79 yards. A.J. Brown had a couple of touchdowns as well. Jalen Hurts, 326, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Carson Wentz, a couple of interceptions. Vikings got issues with the quarterback position. Yeah, no, Wentz is not Wentz is not the latest quarterback to come into that system and just light it up. He's been turning the ball over. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do. I really don't know what they're gonna do there. I think they definitely made a mistake letting go of Sam Darnold. I think you probably should have but he wanted the big money, and I guess they didn't want to give it to him. And you also had Aaron Rodgers sitting out there too. Telling me Aaron Rodgers couldn't do good with this team. Look at how he's doing with Pittsburgh. So, yeah, Eagles get a much needed victory. They win 28-22. Actually, speaking of Aaron Rodgers, we didn't talk about this game. The Bengals winning 33-31 over the Steelers in the Unk Bowl. Aaron Rodgers and Joe Flacco played really well, both of them. The Steelers defense kind of reverted back to week one. Pittsburgh Steelers defense, they could not stop anything. After the Steelers took a 10-0 lead, it just seemed like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins were open every single time, and the Steelers never made adjustments. The pass rush really couldn't get to Flacco. Flacco did a great job of getting rid of the ball quickly. The Steelers' offense did the best they could. Rodgers made some really good plays, made some really good throws. Vintage Aaron Rodgers on some of the plays, hitting Metcalf down the sideline for a deep pass. I mean, the second and 20 for the touchdown that had them go up by one. That was unbelievable. And then there was an incident between him and Broderick Jones where he tackled Rodgers, and Rodgers shoved him like he shoved Robert Saleh last year. And they hashed it out. Like I saw a clip of Broderick Jones talking about it. I knew that was going to be the case, but Broderick Jones got to be a little bit careful, okay? Aaron Rodgers is 41 years old, and you were a big guy. You tackle this guy. I mean, you could have hurt him. Got to be careful there. So, but yeah, Rodgers looked really good, and at the very end of the game, the Steelers' last chance, last gasp. Rodgers threw a pass 70 yards, and it reached the end zone and ended up being incomplete. The king of Hail Marys didn't deliver there. He did, connect with Lazard last year for a Hail Mary, and Alan Lazard could end up being a Steeler at some point any day now. I have a feeling that's coming. But Aaron Rodgers could still throw, man. He could still throw it. Him and Flacco could still do it, man. Those quarterbacks from the 2010s, and then you saw how Stafford did. They could still play, man. You give them time to throw. You give them the weapons. They could still do it. They could throw from the pocket. These mobile guys, look, I trust like Mahomes, Burrow, Allen. Lamar's definitely got better at throwing from the pocket, and obviously when Burrow's healthy, those guys I think can do it. But you gotta be able to throw from the pocket because you're not gonna have your legs forever. Like I know Rodgers, made plays with his legs too, but you know what? He also could throw from the pocket too. They both played really well. But the Bengals get a much-needed win. That kind of saved their season. That was a tough loss for the Steelers. Rodgers had a couple of picks. They weren't his fault. Well, one of them wasn't just an arm punt. The other one, the defensive back for the Bengals just simply ripped the ball away from DK Metcalf. So that wasn't really on Rodgers either. The bottom line is the defense just could not get after Joe Flacco. They couldn't. Flacco picked them apart. So now they're 4-2. They take on the Packers. And like I said, I will be at that game. I'm excited. I'm excited for that game. I think we're going to be in for a really good game. Speaking of the Packers, they squeaked by. They beat the Cardinals 27-23. No Kyler Murray for this game. Still dealing with the foot injury. They were able to get by. Josh Jacobs was like a late active player because we weren't sure if he was going to play or not, but he ended up playing and had a couple touchdowns, had the go-ahead touchdown late. Jordan Love made a clutch throw on fourth down. And the Packers are 4-1-1 on the season. The Cardinals were pretty feisty. Jacoby Brissett had a good game. But, it wasn't enough. They're 2-5 now. But, yeah, give the Packers credit. 4-1-1. It's not a pretty 4-1-1. I just feel like I'm still waiting. Jordan Love, 10 touchdowns and 2 picks. It's very good. But it's just, I don't know. I want to see more out of them offensively. I think they're going to be a playoff team, but I don't know. They're another team they're missing something. So we'll have to wait and see. But they picked up a win as well. The Colts, they end up knocking off the Chargers 38-24. They continue to roll. Jonathan Taylor, 3 more rushing touchdowns. Daniel Jones, a couple of touchdowns. Justin Herbert, 2 interceptions on the day. and he passed for over 400 yards at three times. I don't know what kind of uniforms they were wearing, but the Chargers got all kinds of injuries. Herbert threw the ball almost 50 times. Keenan Allen, 119 yards receiving. The tight end, Gadsden, he was their leading receiver. He had 164 yards and a touchdown. But yeah, this Chargers defense got shredded. Colts look good, but I want to see how they match up against. They play the Chiefs later on this year. They play the Seahawks in Seattle. I want to see how they do. I want to see how they do in Arrowhead. Because this team, they mostly have been playing with the lead. And you know what? They did hang in with the Rams, and you could have made the argument they could have won that game because A.D. Mitchell fumbled the ball before crossing the goal line. So I think this is a good team. I think this is a very good team. And they got the best record in the NFL right now. They're 6-1. So give him credit. And Daniel Jones, talk your talk, man. I mean, because they interviewed him after the game, and he said, it's obvious you guys don't know much. He's had a very good year, and good for him. Good for him. And he deserves it after everything he went through with the Giants. So, yeah, they look very good. Cowboys all over the Commanders. Jaden Daniels left the game with a hamstring injury. If the Cowboys had an average defense, is it crazy to say that they're Super Bowl contenders? I mean, this offense is unbelievable. They got weapons everywhere. Javonte Williams over 100 yards again. CeeDee Lamb is back. Pickens continues to make plays. Jake Ferguson. Dak, 16 touchdowns to 3 picks. It's just the defense. And then they had 4 sacks in the game. And they had an interception. The defense is what holds me back. But you know what? They could be a playoff team. But they just got to keep scoring. They got to score. I mean, they pretty much average over 20, 25 points a game. I mean, the only game where they didn't score 20 points was the Bears game. They only had 14. That was the game CeeDee got hurt. But yeah, the Commanders, I don't think that we're getting that same magic we got from last year with them. Yeah, especially with the injuries. I mean, when they were out Terry McLaurin, they were out Deebo Samuel, and then Jaden Daniels gets hurt. So, yeah, they're 3-4 on the year now. Jaden Daniels expected to miss some time. Not looking good for Washington. And we talked about the Niners. Didn't really talk about Christian McCaffrey, though. I mean, he had over 200 yards of total offense in this game. 2 rushing touchdowns. The explosive runs, there wasn't a ton of them in this game. There really wasn't that like 30, 40-yard run that we're accustomed to seeing from him. But he still got it, man. He still got it. He played a very important role. This was the Christian McCaffrey game. And George Kittle didn't even get a catch in this game. He had 2 targets but didn't catch him. But he'll obviously get it going. I mean, they get Brandon Ayuk and Ricky Pearsall back, and Purdy comes back. We're still waiting to see when he makes his return. And this defense could play well. I mean, this is a dangerous team, and they have that experience. So they're 5-2. The injuries don't seem to really be impacting them, but I think you do got to get Purdy back. You got to get him back. Mac Jones is doing a good job, but you need Brock Purdy back in there. And then you got the 2 games on Monday night. I was very impressed with what the Lions did yesterday as we're recording this. I was very impressed by what the Lions did. I did not expect them to shut down the Bucs offense like they did. I mean, they were putting pressure on Baker Mayfield all day long. They ended up winning 24-9. I mean, Baker couldn't really do anything. And you had Emeka Egbuka back, and Mike Evans made his return. So you thought like this was going to be like, a 40-38 kind of game. Even though last year when they played each other, it was 20-16, I think the final score the Bucs won. But this Lions defense, I mean, they kept Baker off balance all game long. He was overthrowing guys. He was underthrowing guys. He had Tez Johnson wide open for a touchdown. There was another time he had Shepard, I think, open, and he would have had a lot of room to run. They really couldn't run the football either. This Lions defense was relentless. And then on the other side, you had Jahmyr Gibbs. He had his longest touchdown run of his career, I believe. I think it was a 78-yarder. He had a big game, had a couple touchdowns in the game. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a touchdown to start it off. It was close early, and the Bucs created havoc, but it just wasn't enough. And unfortunately, Mike Evans did make his return last night, but he's going to be out until like I guess the playoffs, and the Bucks should make the playoffs. Um, it was in the first half. Baker throws deep to Mike Evans, and he caught it, but he ended up losing control of it, and he ended up banging his head against the turf, banging his his shoulder against the turf, and he was motionless, for a little bit, and then even when they got him up, you could tell he was dazed. So he left the game with a concussion, and on top of that, he has a broken collarbone, and it's just it hurts because Mike Evans, has been one of the most consistent players in the NFL. He's the definition of consistency. He's never had a season where he hasn't had 1,000 yards. He's one of the great receivers of this game. Great person. A champion. And obviously, it hurts when you see a player like him, get hurt like that. Um, and hearing Laura Rutledge on the broadcast saying that how excited he was to be back, and to be a part of the team, and how well Baker's been playing despite not having him, and then you're like, imagine what's going to happen when you get Mike Evans back with Ibuka, and Tez Johnson's now making plays, and then you get Godwin back and Bucky Irvin back, and you hopefully get Jalen McMillan back. You forget about him, but now you're not going to see that, at least until the playoffs. So hope Mike Evans, you get better soon. One of the players I'd like to root for as well, and also being a Baker Mayfield fan as well. It was tough. That was definitely tough. So hopefully Mike Evans, speedy recovery, and we see him back on the field soon enough. But unfortunately that 1,000-yard streak is going to come to an end. So. But obviously that's out the window. You want to make sure that the player is fine. But he really got banged up on that play, and it was scary. It was scary to see him like that. So like I said, get well soon, Mike Evans. But yeah, it's just it was unfortunate, and it didn't get any better for the Bucks. They just could not get anything going. Baker did hit Tez Johnson. They made a nice play for a touchdown pass. But Lions had control of that game the whole time. And Baker got banged up. You saw him limping. I mean, he's been banged up all year. You saw him limping after the game. He's still banged up. So, tough loss for the Bucks. So, yeah, we'll see what happens, where they go from here. They'll be taking on the Saints in New Orleans. But now the Lions have kind of leapfrogged them. Actually, no. They, actually, no. The Packers are in first place, so never mind. So the Lions are still the fifth seed. So then the final game, I think I got every game. Yeah, so the final game is the Seahawks and the Texans. Seahawks turned the ball over a bunch of times. They still got the win. Nico Collins and C.J. Stroud both hit their heads on the turf. Nico left with, I think he actually had the concussion. But yeah, no, I mean, the Seahawks, they had a lead. They never gave it up. But yeah, they did lose the turnover battle. So the turnover battle, let's see. So it ended up being, the Seahawks turned the ball over 4 times. The Texans turned it over once. Stroud had a pick at one point. And it didn't matter because the Seahawks defense just locked it down. Texans really couldn't run the football. Dalton Schultz was their leading receiver. Jackson Smith-Njigba, he's had such a big year, and that has continued. He has over 100 yards. He had over 100 yards, 14 targets. He had a touchdown in the game. But yeah, Seahawks, they look really good. They're 5-2 on the season. They go into the bye. They're a dangerous team. They are a really dangerous team. The only games that they lost, they could have beat the Bucks. They lost in a shootout, and then they had a chance to win at the end, and Nick Bosa strip sacked Darnold. So they could be a team that should be 7-0. And then when they come out of the bye, they'll be taking on the Commanders, Week 9. So, how everything kind of looks as we're at pretty much the halfway point. So, the Colts have the 1 seed in the AFC. Then you got the Patriots at the 2, the Broncos at the 3, the Steelers at the 4. Who saw those 4 teams being the division leaders before the year started? Then you got the Bills, the Chargers, and the Jaguars controlling the wild card spots. The Chiefs, they're tied with them, but they're on the outside looking in because they lost to the Chargers and the Jaguars. So I think that's going to change in at some point. And then the NFC, you got the Packers as the 1, the Niners as the 2, the Eagles as the 3, Bucks as the 4. Then you got the Lions as the 5, Seahawks as the 6, and the Rams as the 7 seed. You have 6 5-2 teams, and they got the Bears who are 4-2 also. They're on the outside looking in. They're a half game back. It's competitive. It's very competitive, and that's what you love to see. But that is pretty much it, though. I think we pretty much covered everything. Again, injuries just continue to plague the NFL, which it happens. But, just hope that the guys that are hurt, they get back on the field soon enough. But it's part of the game. So, yeah, like I said, I'll be in Pittsburgh for the game on Sunday. I'll look out for some more videos. I'll try to get a baseball postseason recap preview of the World Series because the World Series is on Friday between the Blue Jays and the Dodgers. That'll be in Toronto. Game 1 should be a good World Series. I don't think the Dodgers are just going to completely wipe the floor with the Blue Jays. I really don't believe that, although I do lean towards the Dodgers. But I will talk about that on another video. But until then, make sure everybody to subscribe, leave a like and comment. Also subscribe. Follow us on the social media platforms in the description below. And wherever you get your podcasts, you can listen to us as well. Just look up Infinite Sports and you'll find us there. And until next time, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off. Have a good one. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.